thoughts on how cloud is likely to become more firmly integrated into the service delivery activities of each of you in your different public sector areas. First off, I'd like to point out that cloud is an and, not an or. So this diagram here, which for reasons I just completely don't understand, is sourced from the Center for Disease Control, shows, I don't know why they were into this, but it shows a chart, a 10-year projection, 11-year projection, if you include the base year, of landlines and cell phones. And what we see is about a 95-5 split here and close to a 50-50 convergence on the other side. And that's a phenomenon that we often call cord cutting, right? But it's important to note that this is not really about the growth of cell phones. It's really about the decline of landline households. That's actually what the key says. The households without a working landline telephone. So this is an or, right? You are a landline household or you are not. Cloud is much more an and. So here's some figures that are actually sourced to our organization that say in 2012, basically all of the spending, all of the total spending, which is the gray bar, was spending on premise, which is the blue bar. Relatively little of it was in alternatives to, sorry, this is back office only, so servers, storage, networking, software that sits on servers. So not PCs, but the stuff that is considered to be enterprise technology. Relatively little of that was XaaS, or something as a service alternatives to that conventional technology. In fact, only 4 cents was spent on XaaS in 2012 in Canada for every dollar spent on on-premise technology. But as we move across this curve, you see that the ratio is actually just like in the previous slide, get to almost 50-50 from almost 95-5. That the gold bars grow steadily, and that the blue bars eventually decline a little bit. But the important difference here is that this is not an or. This is not people jumping from on-premise into cloud. This is people adding cloud most often in a hybrid environment to what's on-premise. So what we have is greatly expanded capabilities, but a much more complicated environment to manage. Let me just show you one quick view, or 4 quick views of how this evolution takes place. These slides are sourced to Information Builders, and this is, of course, an Information Builders session, so you might think I'm just sucking up here, but that's not the case. I actually use these slides in my U of T class as well, so because it's a very good depiction. In this one, the pure cloud option, we basically have that, if you go back to Act 1 of that progression, we have a point solution. Somebody says, I need some ability to do analytics, and you can stand up quickly, cheaply, easily an analytics capability, web-focused capability in the cloud. And as it says right there, this works best for new projects. This is not intended to be at the end of that and chart where we have 50-50 spending and on-prem and cloud. This is just a point solution to a point problem. If you move out to hybrid cloud, there's actually 3 versions of hybrid cloud. This is a pretty light version. Here what we say is we'll stand up the analytics capability in the cloud, but keep the data on-premise, which in a lot of your environments, the data on-premise is probably going to be an important part of the equation. This is probably more a transitionary phase, and it's more a bolt-on to an existing capability than it is a kind of discrete capability. But when you start to get out of here, now we have data on-site. We have the ability to do reporting on-site so we can inform our internal stakeholders with a high degree of disclosure. We have a mid-tier processor in the cloud that allows us to reach out to people beyond our organization. So we can share data with citizens, we can share data with peers, with other stakeholders, using sort of a separate instance of what it is that we're using in-house. And then the 4th phase of this, and the phase that ultimately everybody gets to, is that the data lives in different places. So you have open data that lives up here, as Prasanna was talking about yesterday. We have on-premise data like all of you would have that's fairly sensitive. You can move this data into internal reporting for timely kind of guidance to your staff. you can integrate third-party data into that, or you can use this for comparisons, open data comparisons to other hospitals, other police forces, other governments. I remember seeing an example of this with 2 cities out west that were comparing efficiency in snow removal. Big deal, big budget system, a big budget item for both of those cities. How efficient are you? How efficient are we? Well, some of that data lives in here, some of that data lives somewhere else. We ultimately need to share it, in this case, in a fairly closed community, but we also have internal uses for that same data that we use inside the organization. That's a really simple example. I'm sure all of you can think of ways that this would help you to do benchmarking or rich citizen portals or something like that. To kind of sum this up, I took this slide from the World Economic Forum, and it's a fascinating slide. It shows their belief in the cumulative capability of IT to support service delivery over time and across different waves of technology. And what we see is that if you look at the cumulative capability from the 60s to the mid-80s, that doubled and then redoubled in the 20 years after that, so up to fairly recently with cloud and with mobility. And now we have, what is often called in business a hockey stick type escalation with IoT and analytics, capitalizing on all of the platforms that have come before to drive really remarkably faster change. The notion that things have accelerated quite a lot, I think we can all internalize because we've seen that happen. The notion that things will accelerate much faster, that this acceleration is just starting, the next wave. I think what we need to take away from that is what's okay now will become rapidly obsolete as we move forward. And I think we all have to kind of look in the mirror and say we are all accountable to the pace of change. None of us gets to treat the pace of change as optional in our environments. We have to keep pace with what's going on.